Hi, I'm Harry Welty, candidate for Congress. I've written a book. I think I've sold 4 of them so far to finance my campaign. I've got about 40 days to go before the primary election. This is the book. I got it centered. Not Your Usual Republican. Uh, just in case somebody might be interested, since there's not a lot of buying going on, I'm going to read it to you. I'll start with the 4 introductions. Explanation. 4 introductions. In no particular order, I will offer 4 introductions to this book. The book's purpose is to help me, a 5-time candidate for Minnesota's 8th congressional district seat, to remove a Trump ditto head from Congress. Holy cow. First damn paragraph, and I see an omission of the word to. I did race this into print. One intro is my speculation about what Lincoln's army would have done as it marched through Washington, D.C. after winning the Civil War, if it had been Trumpers attacking our capital, like they did on January 6, 2021. One intro reintroduces a fable that I wrote 22 years ago. My version turns the emperor's new clothes on its head into a nightmare. One intro introduces my grandfather, George Senior Robb. It's meant to remind us of the greatness of the MAGA movement, of the greatness the MAGA movement was invented to undo. Finally, one intro is my reply to an email I received from Congressman Stauber, a Trump ditto head, who has let Trump do all his thinking for him. So I will begin with the first introduction, and maybe in future days I will read other passages. This is what you see at the beginning, and it's a colorized photograph from the era of the Civil War, in which the Grand Army of the Republic, as it was called, marches through Washington, D.C. at the conclusion of the war victorious. And it begins. A Day of Treason, revisited a year later, Thursday, January 13th, 2022, when I wrote it, 1 year after Donald Trump's attempted overthrow of the last election. And the caption under the photograph, the Grand March through Washington after the Civil War, which began when traitors attacked Fort Sumter on April 12th, 1861. Photo by Matthew Brady in the National Archives. Here is a thought experiment. Imagine that the federal troops who entered the nation's capital in the Grand March after winning the Civil War were suddenly transported to the nation's capital 156 years in the future to January 6, 2021. As they proudly marched past, imagine what would happen if they saw people in strange modern dress waving Confederate flags battling to enter the nation's capital. What would these well-armed soldiers do? I watched that invasion slack-jawed on television 1 year ago. Google Duluth Reader, Purging the Rhinos, January 14, 2021. I have alternately seethed at what they did then and still, better than that, turning the page, what they are still attempting to do. And my better angels, they were Lincoln's better angels before his brains were blown out by an early version of a Trump supporter. I took heart in the wake of the spectacle. Some shocked Republicans condemned the attack, confident the crime would be obvious to everyone. But cultists cannot see the obvious. Today, only a dozen congressional Republicans still have a shred of backbone. Lynn Cheney, an exception, has testicles enough for any one of her spineless colleagues should they find the courage to sew a pair back on. I would like to put the blame for this cultish behavior on the egocentric loser who is holed up in Mar-a-Lago scamming his Grateful Deadish fans for money to pay his mounting legal bills. However, I just can't make myself follow the amiable example of Will Rogers, who said, "I never met a man I didn't like." Trump loyalists are too historically ignorant to understand the legacy they champion springs from the South's defeat in the Civil War. The losers rebuilt the South with a chip on their shoulder. They reestablished their power and continued to turn their back on our founding documents' founding principle that all men are created equal. It interfered with a state's right to deny some citizens their right to vote. I personally rejoiced when 3 white Georgia men were recently sentenced to life in prison for chasing a black jogger down and shooting him like a dog, or Abe Lincoln. When Sirhan Sirhan was given a life sentence for assassinating Robert Kennedy, I was gratified. I wanted him to spend the rest of his days in prison, not get off quickly with the death penalty. I'm glad his recent paroles have been denied. He tried to kill America, just as slave masters once tried to kill America, just as Donald Trump is trying to kill America. Although he'd bragged for 30 years that he would be a great president, it took being mocked by Barack Obama in 2011 to light a fire under him. It set him on a merry chase to rip the Republican Party's empty-suited presidential wannabes into confetti as he seized the party's nomination for president. You can see the moment the fire was lit somewhere on YouTube. President Barack Obama humiliated Trump in front of all the press, all the people whose respect the property developer craved. At a press club roast, Obama twisted the knife into Trump for touring America, claiming to have proof that the president was the son of one of my fellow Kansans. He was a foreigner. Trump would do Obama one better. He would get elected president. To do it, Trump racked up the most prodigious record of provable lies in Earth's history. His latest and biggest lie fueled his attempted coup. No one likes to be made fun of. Many of Trump's supporters feel that people look down on them too. Trump has done his best to reinforce this feeling. A year following the collapse of the coup has only made this all the more painful for them. They have watched a parade of wannabes groveling at Mar-a-Lago for the Pope's blessing. There has not been a single profile in courage among them. But the bleeding heart liberal Republican in me can't help but feel sorry for these gullible people whose star is still milking them to pay for his legal bills. He's so busy, he has abandoned those who heeded his call to ransack the Capitol to their prison sentences. That said, ignorance has never been an excuse for a capital crime. Fortunately, America is a land that believes that no one is above the law, including a president. That was until a couple of days ago when the Supreme Court basically made the president like a monarch. Thank you very much, Donald Trump. The soldiers parading through our nation's capital 156 years ago in the Grand March were convinced that they had closed a terrible chapter of our nation's history. Donald Trump has done his best to keep it propped open. It's time we close that book for good. With my traditional little italicized ending, everything Harry writes about that is not the imminent destruction of Earth as we knew it is superfluous. but he does prattle on at LincolnDemocrat.com.